over the last 2 years, specifically in a post-pandemic world, in a world where we are seeing geopolitical risks and geopolitical tensions, there is a need for supply chain resilience, there is a need for diversification, that this could be the opportunity for India, that this is the window for India to be able to capitalize on. Are all our ducks lined up?
So, I'll start. Thank you so much for having us, Shireen. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. This is a unique moment. Look, I've been in the aerospace business for my entire career, finance and then with Boeing, the OEM, for the last 14 years. And what I can tell you is for my entire career, people have been telling me that someday, India will be one of the top markets for aviation. Someday, India will have the capability for top quality manufacturing and be part of the global supply chain. And it is crystal clear that in this moment, as we emerge from the global pandemic, someday has arrived. Right?
Someday has arrived.
Someday has arrived. This is India's moment. Because as companies around the world seek supply chain resilience, this means diversification of the supply chain, dual sourcing, and India has an opportunity to perform at a world-class level, which they are doing in our experience with our billion-dollar-plus supply chain here in India. And as a result of that, they can earn more work in manufacturing here. That performance drives additional work placement, and that's what we're seeing.
So someday has arrived. That's the word in from Salil at Boeing India. I'll come to that historic deal that Boeing has just inked with Air India in just a second. But let me get Sanjeev to comment. Sanjeev, as I pointed out, ABB has been a long-term committed investor. You've been in India for over 70 years now. I don't know how many people in this room know, but you've got almost 20 factories up and running across India. How important is India today from a global manufacturing point of view?
Thank you, Shireen. We have been very long on India for, as you mentioned, for the last 70, 75 years. We are manufacturing in this country. And we have developed deep supply chains within the country, which not only serve us to serve customers here in India, but also they are globally connected. I must say that over a period of time, we have seen different market cycles, different policy cycles, and it serves well for a business to take a long point of view on India, because this is growing year after year. And last few years, I must say there is a dramatic shift wherein we have increased the portfolio depth that we have of our global technologies in the country. And we have about 18 product lines, and each of the product lines is doing extremely well, both on the quantitative as well as qualitative basis. So I believe that more you localize in this country, better effect you get more competitive, and at the same time you create operations which can not only serve the domestic market, but also the global operations. That has been our experience so far.
You know, I'll talk about the export opportunity with each one of you, but I want to pick on this with you, Sanjeev. You had a record 2022 order book of over 10,000 crores. Is India today your fastest growing market?
We grew 31% last year. And as I said, we are exposed to about 22 market segments, very dark, segments in the power industry, and also new market segments like data centers. I find that all the market segments are growing at a very healthy rate. And yes, it is India's moment. And among all the markets globally, there are other markets which are quite strong for ABB Group, but India definitely stands out.
India definitely stands out. Well, that is good to hear. And ladies and gentlemen, that does deserve a round of applause as well. Sunil, to have built a homegrown consumer durable company over the past 2 decades. You started this off in the early 90s. And I remember you saying that the biggest difference between when you started to what you are seeing today is that there is a mindset shift. That earlier people believed that software India could do it. Nobody believed that in manufacturing, India could do it. That's the biggest change you see today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest change is the change in the mindset. And in most of the cases, I think that is the most important thing. So I remember maybe about 20 years back, I used to go and meet various bureaucrats and discuss with them that, we want to make India the next hub for manufacturing of the world. And the answer that I used to get was, don't waste your time. Our strength lies in software. Electronic hardware might not happen. And I think now everybody, I think mostly everybody is convinced that this is our time and this is the time to make India the next hub for manufacturing, not only for the domestic market, but for the global markets. And I think if you look at the numbers, Shireen, you know, they're very, very encouraging. The global market for our industry, which is the ICT, information, communication, technology, and electronics, it's almost $900 billion. And India has just about 2% market share, so our exports are roughly about $18 billion. So there's a huge opportunity that awaits us. And even in the domestic market, right, there is, I think, a big opportunity because the penetration levels, you'd be surprised to know hardly 15% of the people own an LED television. Maybe about just to 10 to 12% people own a washing machine. So there's a large potential for import substitution and making in India for India. And if I were to say, you know, PLI and Make in India, in fact, 1.0 is already doing very well. I'm sure you already know the numbers, but for some of you who don't know, I think it's very encouraging. There is for the first time that out of the total demand of about $120 billion in our industry, almost 90 billion was manufactured in India.
Wow.
Right? And if you look at even exports, 10 years back, we were hardly exporting any mobile phones. Maybe 20 years back, in fact, we were importing all our mobile phones for the domestic market. And last year, our exports of mobile phones is about $10 billion, which is a growth of 100%. And next 5 years, we're looking at exports of $100 billion just from mobile phones alone. So I think now there is no doubt that this is our time and this is the time to make in India.
Well, this is our time and this is the time to capitalize on many of those segments that you spoke of, as you pointed out, that given the under-penetration, the headroom for growth in the domestic market, but more importantly also in the export market is immense. Santosh Iyer, like everybody else on this panel, it was a record-breaking year for Mercedes as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to take a guess on how many Mercedes cars were sold in 2022? And these are all priced at 1 crore plus. Anyone here who wants to take a guess on how many were sold? 2 lakh. Santosh would be on a different planet if it were 2 lakh cars. Okay, Santosh Iyer, how many cars did you sell over 1 crore?
Well, last year we did more than 60,000 cars. It was the best ever year. And thank you. And 22% of these cars were more than 1 crore of rupees, which was never happened. And pre-COVID, this used to be around 10 to 12%. So almost 70-odd% growth on cars more than 1 crore. So the structure of the market, we see a completely different market with this change.
You know, but as we pointed out, there is severe under-penetration. And of course, taxation continues to be an issue that industry has been battling against. But that apart, when we are talking about the export opportunity as well as trying to cater to domestic demand, are you adding capacity at this point in time? What kind of incremental investments are we looking at? And how important is India from an export opportunity perspective?
Yeah, you know, in Mercedes-Benz, we have something, India is always seen with a word called strategic patience. We have been in India
strategic patience.
Yeah, we have been in India for 28 years now. We were the first to set up manufacturing, and now we were the first to also start local EV production in India, in the luxury car space. So this strategic patience now, I think we all feel the time has come. The time has come for this patience to start now delivering. We have a capacity of 20,000 cars now going up to 40,000. We are investing. And apart from what we do on manufacturing, we also have a big R&D hub in Bangalore. We are employing more than 6,000 people there. And they work not only on engineering side, but they also work on software and also digitalization side. So there's a lot happening. And we are quite proud to say that any Mercedes in the world has an India in it. Because there is an Indian engineer which has worked on some development, some patent creation, and we are already contributing to the global ecosystem.
Well, it may not have an India-made component yet, but it certainly does have Indian design sensibilities, development capabilities as part of the product. But Salil, let's talk about the export opportunity, and let's also address the issue of how strategic patience is finally starting to deliver for companies like Boeing as well, long-term committed investor here in India. You know, from a design perspective, from a capabilities perspective, and a manufacturing perspective, explain to me what the next 5 years look like for you.
So what we've done, the next 5 years is going to be continuing to accelerate the trajectory that we've been on. So let me start on the engineering and manufacturing side. So over the last really 7 or 8 years, we've ramped up, we've taken a stepwise approach to increasing manufacturing here. From simple assemblies to more complex assemblies to large-scale aerostructures like the Apache helicopter, the world's leading attack helicopter. Those start their lives in Hyderabad today. Not just for the Indian Air Force, but for the US Army as well. So we've gone from there, we've worked with our partners here in India on things that are made using complex composite materials. That trajectory will continue to grow as we move into more complex systems. But one of India's talents that was raised earlier in the engineering is going to come into play there. Because many people think of engineering and manufacturing as separate, but they're actually joint at the hip. Because in the next 5 to 10 years, as airplanes continue to grow more complex, as airplanes continue to drive sustainability and advanced technologies and all of that, you're going to need partners who can help you with both the engineering and the manufacturing and build to specifications. And that is a strength that India will have, because India will be able to pull together its long-time strengths in engineering with this manufacturing capability that has grown significantly over the last decade. And that's going to make India a leader in the manufacturing over the 5 to 10 years to come.
Sanjeev, I want to roadmap the next 5 years, and I want to get the perspective for ABB. You're sitting on a fairly strong balance sheet at this point in time. You've set aside, about 1,800 crore rupees. That's the corpus that you have to play with for acquisitions, inorganic growth opportunities here in India. What would you consider? What would you look at? What looks exciting?
So in India, I think the way we run our business, we are a debt-free company. We don't bring money from outside. We are able to generate money here. We have a strong balance sheet. And we are looking at both organic as well as inorganic expansions. And if we are looking at targets in India, we are looking targets which complement as a bolt-on onto our existing businesses, both in the software as well as in the manufacturing area. So we have 18 business models. So each business model has been given the allocation, and they're looking out in the market which are the partners they can acquire, so that we have a bolt-on business model expansion.
Anything on the anvil in terms of closure?
We do have a good list at the moment, but we'll definitely let you know. You'll be the first person to know the moment we have it.
I'm going to hold you to that promise. You made that in front of a large audience here. But Sunil, you said that this is not the time for small factories. This is the time now for mega factories to be set up here in India. One of the constraints, specifically as far as, for instance, the telecom sector is concerned, is that there has been a lack of ecosystem, which we've seen play out for the benefit of the auto industry, as Santosh will point out. But on both these counts, on scale as well as building out of ecosystems, what do you believe are the next steps that are required to really capitalize on the opportunity?
Yeah, so Shireen, as I mentioned, that if you look at the first level of manufacturing in our industry, has already started happening. Exports are increasing every year. I think that's a very positive sign. But I think now is the time for the industry and the government to look at beyond PLI and beyond subsidies. That how do we make this momentum sustainable? And three things come to my mind. The first thing that you talked about is scale. And I think the first thing that we need to be globally competitive is large scale in manufacturing. And that's why I'd mentioned that the time has come for mega factories. There was a time that people used to think that, I'm going to set up a factory to address, let's say, 5% of the domestic market. I think that time is gone because we have to be, as I mentioned, now globally competitive. Second, we need a very strong and vibrant component ecosystem. The first question that I'm asked at any event or wherever I go and talk about electronic manufacturing, tell us what's the value addition that you have in a sector. And my answer is that, the same question was asked when the auto industry was just coming to the country. Yeah. When, let's say, Maruti was setting up their first plant, that where are the components? Right now, we are manufacturing the finished product. And today, I think the auto component industry is exporting globally. So I think this is what we need in our industry. We need a very strong and vibrant component ecosystem. And finally, we need to be designing our products. So besides make in India, it should be design in India. only then this is going to be sustainable. But I'm confident that work is going on all the three fronts. You talked about some of the issues in setting up these mega factories. I think land acquisition continues to be one issue that needs to be addressed. Second, on the component ecosystem, we need to encourage our small and medium enterprises to come in and invest in this sector. So if you look at China, our neighbor, I think the backbone of the component industry is the MSME industry there. So I think that's one thing we need to make it easier for these companies to come and invest in India in the component ecosystem. And lastly, I think we need to encourage more design-led manufacturing in the country. So I think this is what is going to make it sustainable over a period of time. But I'm confident it's going to happen.
But you know, I didn't ask you how much value addition are you doing, but what I want to understand from you, because you gave the example and the analogy of the auto sector, how far are we from being able to get to that inflection point for instance, the telecom sector?
So, the value addition is different across different verticals. So if you look at one of the best verticals in terms of value addition would be the appliances. So today, in the industry as well as the company, so some of the things that we manufacture like washing machines and the air conditioners that are being manufactured in the country, the value addition is as high as 85%. There are only some compressors and motors that probably are not manufactured in the country, but that's also coming because of the PLI that came in for this sector, where the entire corpus was spent on creating a component ecosystem. But if you look at somewhere, the extreme side is the mobile phone industry, where hardly 15% value addition is there. But whenever someone talks to me about that, I'd like to remind them that in China, even today, all the microprocessors that go into a mobile phone, anywhere, come from Korea, South Korea, Japan, or Taiwan, right? China still doesn't manufacture any of these microprocessors. So I think it's a matter of time, and I'm sure it's going to happen.
Santosh, since we're talking about the road ahead, add to the list that we've heard here from Salil, Sunil, and Sanjeev in terms of what next needs to be done to really ensure that we don't miss the bus this time around. How crucial will it also be for the government to fast-track FTAs, really for the growth of the manufacturing sector?
I think we are at an inflection point now, and if you see now let me talk about the automotive industry. It's 49% of the total manufacturing GDP is coming from automotive as a sector. But when you look at exports, automotive lags quite behind because the bigger markets like Europe or to the US. And second is the point of, as you rightly mentioned, FTAs, because without free trade agreements, we still run a risk of not being as competitive when it comes to automotive as a category, which also has high logistic cost and different entry barriers. So I think it's the time now, one is to harmonize legislation. So how far can our legislations when it comes to the automotive sector be harmonized with the US, with Europe, so we don't invest double for legislations in India compared to others. The second is, of course, FTA, which will help us for accelerated, I would say, exports out of India, but also for the domestic consumption. We are at a point where the demographics are going to favor India now. We have the change in the mindset. As we rightly started this panel, there is a change in the mindset for consumption. If these two ingredients are there, now for us, and also when I now talk about automotive industry, the roads are in place because now consumers can enjoy their cars or any automobile that they purchase. So with these ingredients in place, I think taxation is one other element that definitely can change. Because when I now talk about Sunil, in his sector, the cost of an iPhone or any mobile phone is very equivalent what you buy in Europe and in India, whereas automotive cost is around 2 to 2.5 times. So as an industry, we feel if the parity comes up, more people purchase, the domestic industry grows exponentially now. We are ready for that hockey stick, which we have been waiting for the last 10 years. All the ingredients are in place. So a bit of tax, a bit of FTA, legislative changes, which harmonizes with other legislations. I think the recipe is all there. We just need to execute.
The recipe is all there. I don't know how many of you caught on to that, but what Santosh was essentially saying that it's cheaper buying a Mercedes in Europe than buying one here in India on account of the taxes. But Salil, I want to talk about the big Air India deal. Congratulations. Boeing has inked that landmark deal along with Airbus. 220 planes is what Boeing will be supplying to Air India. But there's an additional top-up. So you are likely to supply 70 more aircraft. What's the deal with that?
Well, so when we have large airplane orders, we always give our customers flexibility to top that up as their needs evolve over time. Look, the Indian market for aviation is going to grow leaps and bounds. We forecast 2,200 airplanes to come into the Indian market over the next 20 years. And so with all of our customers, we want to give them a little bit additional flexibility to upsize their order when it's the right time for them to do so. And so that's what that's about.
Okay, so on the aviation side, Air India 220 planes, that's a massive order that you've inked, and you said that 2,200 planes will be added on. That's the expectation and the estimate over the next 20 years. Any constraints that require redressal at this point in time to ensure that the opportunity in the commercial space continues to hold up?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we as an airplane OEM do is we're only successful when our customers are successful, right? So some of the things that we've announced over the past few weeks after the announcement of that deal is, of course, the logistics center to make sure we have parts here in India, the customer support center to make sure our customers can receive the technical support they need from the region as opposed to having to call, Seattle or California all the time. Those are the kinds of things that we do to further buttress the world-class technical people that we've had on the ground here for years. But from a standpoint of the overall market growth, I think everyone will say it's maximizing the growth of infrastructure here. Because what's going to happen, we had 140 million air transport passengers per year before COVID, and now we're getting back to that figure and surpassing that figure. If you look at airport infrastructure, it's not too far above that number already in terms of what it can handle. And so that's why the government's initiative to double the number of airports and aerodromes is critical to enabling the delivery of those 2,200 airplanes over the next 20 years. And in addition to building the physical infrastructure, we have to optimize how we use the airspace, how we integrate it with defense, how we integrate it with drones and UAVs, the unmanned vehicles that are going to be coming up, and make the most of the infrastructure we have. It's only if we do that that we will be able to actually take those airplanes that we expect to come in.
Absolutely. Sanjeev, a large part of the growth has essentially been driven by the government spending on CapEx, and we've seen that happen especially over the last few years. The expectation and the hope is that the private sector will start to invest as well, and private CapEx will pick up. That is a point of concern. What are the other concerns you think that need to be addressed to ensure we don't lose momentum?
Well, definitely. The infrastructure spend by the government has a good rolling effect both in the private sector and the contracting industry, and we do enjoy a lot of orders coming from different market segments. Now, with respect to further expansion, and especially since we are talking about manufacturing, I would say that we will be served well. I think if we deepen the supply chains of components in the country. So, of course, we are the motherhead plants wherein we integrate a lot of technologies. But I think equal attention should be paid for what comes to those plants to be manufactured and integrated by large players like us, wherein we should look into those focus and incentivize these global supply chain partners to base themselves here. We will do our bit, we will invite them, and they will also come. But I think a special scheme in that area will accelerate the deepening of the supply chain. That will bring the cost down for the customer, as well as it allows the expansion of the market.
So much more focused approach on the component side, which is what Sunil was also talking about. That's the expectation that you have.
That's right.
Sunil, what's the aspiration now? It's from the last 20 years to where you are today, you've managed to build a 10,000 plus crore rupee company at this point in time. What's the target that you've set for yourself over the next few years?
Well, normally I do not set targets in terms of numbers because I think you're restricting yourself whenever you do that. But the vision is now that we want to be in the top 5 EMS companies globally, which would mean setting up large capacities, world-class infrastructure, and focusing on efficiencies and Industry 4.0 processes and huge scale over a period of time. And I'm confident the way India is going, the kind of policies that we have in place, I think it's just a matter of time that India becomes the next hub for manufacturing, and Dixon is there in the top 5 companies globally.
Well, we wish,
Hopefully
we wish you the very best of luck with that aspiration. But what about brands made in India for the world? How far are we from that?
Yeah, I think I remember reading an article recently, an editorial that which can be known as global brand, right?
Yeah.
Where are those brands and how are they going to come about? But I think if you look at the history of brands which came out of, let's say, countries like South Korea and Japan, these brands initially focused on being the brand behind the brand, which is being an electronic manufacturing as a service, right? And I talk about large brands, which you see now in India, the Korean brands and the Japanese brands. So what they did was, they focused on building a large scale, then they focused on designing their own products, and then putting that money behind the brand. So I think we are at that stage now that we see a lot of companies now coming out in the EMS space. It's also encouraging that the financial sector has taken note of that. Last, I think 2 years, there have been 5 IPOs which have come in our sector.
Yeah.
So that scale is being created, that money is being spent on a component ecosystem, that money is being spent on design-led manufacturing. So I'm very confident that a few Indian brands are going to rise in our sector, which are going to be global in times to come. And I think we see some brands already have that aspirations, but I think some of the mistakes that were made, if we look at, let's say, 15 years back, we had great brands, but probably they did not really invest too much into their own design in the ecosystem, which led to the downfall. But I'm sure now we've learned from our mistakes. Those mistakes are not going to be repeated. And very soon, we'll have Indian global brands.
Very soon, we'll have Indian global brands, and hopefully, course correction that has been made, investment in R&D and IP will have to be part of that. Santosh, India today, one of the fastest growing markets, or is in fact the fastest growing market for Mercedes?
Yeah, it's the fastest growing market for Mercedes. Last year and this year, again, we expect double-digit growth.
And how many launches do you have lined up for 2023?
10 launches this year.
And on the electric mobility side, how big of that is going to be a play here in India?
Well, we were the first to launch a luxury EV in India, locally produce it. So we are fully committed on the localization of EVs for this market. We feel the consumers are ready for electric vehicles. It's about what kind of suitable products we can give to the market. We are committed to launch another 4 EVs in the next 12 to 18 months in India.
Okay, so 10 launches expected. Salil, I'm going to get wrap-up comments from each one of you. Let me start by asking you, in terms of sourcing from India for Boeing globally, that has been on an upward trajectory. Where do you see that over the next 5 years?
So I think, we're over 8,000 crores today. We don't have a number in target. What we have is a capability target, right? And that capability is both what we're doing and how we're doing it. I've already talked about what we're doing in terms of taking it up the value curve, but equally important is how we're doing it. And for example, that means continuing to skill the folks that are doing our work here, and that includes focusing on diversity. We have a factory in Pune with one of our partners where we have an assembly line for electrical components, which is 100% women. And it's just done to prove the point that that is possible. And it's things like that that we'll continue to do here.
Well, a factory with 100% women on board, that does deserve a round of applause, and I hope that we do see much more of that. And I think that is also going to be one of the things that we need to focus on as we build out the manufacturing story. Sanjeev, where do you believe we will find the sweet spot at this point in time? You've got your fingers across 20 different sectors, 20 different verticals. Where do you believe that the one thing where we really do have the strongest advantage today?
Well, in country, as I said, all the market segments are expanding. And since the sophistication of demand in the market is high and the consumers are asking for a high quality products, so that is deepening the supply chains. And with that, our operations are also getting more sophisticated, more automated. So that becomes kind of a world-class operation by standards. So what happens is that automatically becomes very attractive from the cost point, the operational delivery point for the export market. So we see that by participating in a good way in the domestic market, it also opens up a gateway for the export. So I think that's a sweet spot as we see going forward.
Sunil, you talked about mega factories, but are these going to be smart mega factories? Is that going to be the aspiration?
No, absolutely. And I think this journey has just started. There's a long, long way to go, and we're looking forward to the time that we can do at least about $300 billion of manufacturing in India. And I'm reminded of that Shah Rukh Khan movie which said that, picture abhi bahut baki hai mere dost. So this has just started, And I remember that saying, you know, this famous poet who said that, you know, no power on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. And this is definitely our time, and this is the time to make in India.
Well, apna time aa gaya, as per the panel here. Santosh Iyer, I'll give you the final say on this panel.
No, so I just continue the Bollywood twist because it's, you know, we have been growing up to this entire thing that hum honge kamyab ek din, and it used to be dots. I think now we can do the full stop, and now we are there, and we will go to the next level.
Hum ho gaye kamyab.
Kamyab.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. It is India's manufacturing moment and manufacturing opportunity, and we've heard from some of the best that India has today on what it will take for us to be able to capitalize on that opportunity. Thank you very much, and we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you so much, Jen. I would like to actually do mention here that post-lunch, we have a Grammy Award winner in the house, so stay tuned for that. Don't take time on lunch. Please come back and get ready very, very quickly. But before that, let's get ready for the surprise. And please pardon me, they are wanting me to do something very, very audacious. They want me to say a film dialogue in front of you. So pardon me, I'm going to say it like a news anchor. And the dialogue is, हर कहानी के दो पहलू होते हैं, सच और झूठ, लेकिन इस कहानी के पहलू हैं गुनाह और गुमराह. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mrunal Thakur, who clearly is not wavering in her path. She certainly is not Gumrah, and she has her path etched out for her. And joining her in conversation is Mr. Kishore Ajwani. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrunal Thakur.
Welcome to Rising India, Abhinal.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
And when we say Rising India, who better than talk to you? Because आपने international film भी की और India की अलग-अलग languages में films भी की, मराठी से start किया. कितनी भाषाओं में film कर चुकी हैं आप? कितनी languages में?
हिंदी, मराठी, तेलुगु, जो कि डब हुई बाद में मलयालम और तमिल में. लेकिन उम्मीद करती हूँ कि सारी भाषाओं में, इंडिया के जितनी भी भाषाएं, उन सारी भाषाओं में मैं काम करूँ.
तो जब कहा जाता है वन इंडिया वन सिनेमा, क्या अब आपको लग रहा है उसका एरा आ चुका है? उसी की एज चल रही है. दिस इज द एरा ऑफ वन इंडिया वन सिनेमा. Okay, I'll talk to the audio people. Do you think this is the age of one India, one cinema?
Yes, this is the age और मैं एक्चुअली आई कांट टेल यू, आई एम सो प्राउड टू बी एंटरिंग द इंडस्ट्री एट दिस टाइम बिकॉज मुझे ना कि सिर्फ मराठी सिनेमा का हिस्सा बनने को मिला, लेकिन हिंदी और तेलुगु, अभी 2 ऑस्कर्स भी आए हैं हमारे देश, एंड व्हाट कुड नथिंग प्राउडर, यू नो, आई एम सो प्राउड एंड आई रियली वांट टू रिप्रेजेंट India on a global level, you know. I want to narrate and tell the stories उन सारे लोगों के जो किसी ना किसी तरह से celebrate ने हम मतलब people are not able to know about their journey. So मुझे इन सारे लोगों का you know journey का हिस्सा बन के एक global platform पे उनकी story पहुंचानी है. That's my aim.
So and people would want to know when you would have been growing up, तब तो One India One Cinema नहीं था. Then cinema was dancing around the street, dancing around the trees. तो आपने यही सपना लिया था कि ऐसा ही सिनेमा करना है?
You know, बहुत लोग यहाँ पे बैठे हैं जिन्होंने बहुत ही संघर्ष, you know, they've had their share of journey, बहुत you know fight करके family से या circumstances से वो आज यहाँ तक पहुँचे. And I actually want to thank my family क्योंकि शुरुआत में मुझे उनका support नहीं था क्योंकि उन्हें डर लगता था कि क्या होगा, इंडस्ट्री कैसी है, अच्छे रोल्स मिलेंगे या नहीं मिलेंगे. बट टू बिगिन विथ जब टेलीविज़न से शुरुआत हुई तो एक अपनापन सा लगा और उससे एक स्टेप ऊपर मराठी सिनेमा से शुरुआत की. और क्योंकि मैं महाराष्ट्रन हूँ, फैमिली जब पूरी टीम और क्रू से आकर मिली, जो सब्जेक्ट्स थे उनके बारे में उनको पता चला, सो दे फेल्ट वेरी प्राउड. फिर लव सोनिया की बात आई और जब फिल्म रिलीज होने से पहले फिल्म फेस्टिवल मेलबर्न इंडिया फिल्म फेस्टिवल हो या यू नो अमेरिका जब फिल्म गई, तो जो कमेंट्स आ रहे थे कि मृणाल यू आर द नेक्स्ट स्मिता पाटिल. तो स्मिता पाटिल फॉर मी इज़ माय गॉडेस. मैं उनको वर्शिप करती हूँ. उनके सारे फिल्म में मैंने बहुत स्टडी किए हैं और दिस इज़ अ वेरी बिग कॉम्प्लीमेंट स्पेशली फॉर अ मराठी गर्ल. तो now my family says ki you know what Mrinal, we are proud of you, there's no looking back, just one thing, जो भी फिल्म का आप हिस्सा बनोगे, make sure that the audience learns something out of it. एक conversation शुरू होनी चाहिए उस फिल्म के ख़त्म होने के बाद. It's my small effort as an actor to make this society a better place to live in.
और आप शेयर करती हैं अपने फैंस के साथ, अपने ऑडियंस के साथ मोमेंट्स जिसमें आप स्ट्रगल भी करती हैं पर्सनली. वो क्यों शेयर करती हैं और ऐसा क्या होता है एक्टर की लाइफ में जो ऐसा स्ट्रगल करना पड़ता है?
You know, I'm sure आप